Aurobindo Ghosh, the profounder of integral yoga, the prophet of the life divine, the fiery evangelist of nationalism, the interpreter of the Veda, the critique of life and literature, poet of great power and versatility. Sri Aurobindo Ghosh was an Indian nationalist and freedom fighter, major Indian English poet, philosopher, social reformer, essayist, short story writer, dramatist, yogi, and Mahakavi. He joined the movement of India's freedom from British rule, and for a duration of 5 years, 1905 to 1910, became one of its most important leaders. Born on 15th August 1872 in Kolkata, West Bengal, India. Sri Aurobindo's life may be divided into 4 periods based on the major location of residence: England, Baroda, Kolkata, and Pondicherry. His life and works will be discussed soon after finishing the analysis of his poem Life and Death. The analysis of the poem Life and Death. The poem Life and Death is composed of a quatrain and a couplet. Quatrain is a type of stanza consisting of 4 lines. A couplet means 2 successive lines that rhyme and have the same meter. In this poem, these 2, that is, quatrain and couplet, is not separated. The rhyme scheme of the poem Life and Death is AB, AB, CC. It attempts to reconcile 2 opposites, life and death. The chiastic structure of the opening line of this poem belies and simultaneously underlines the message the poet intends to convey. The chiastic structure, also called chiastic pattern or ring structure, literary structure used in ancient literatures. Concepts or ideas are positioned in a special symmetric order or pattern. For example, ideas A and B can be appear like AB and then BA. Chiastic structures generally indicate to the reader that the 2 concepts balanced in the structure are indeed opposites. In this poem, it is life and death. Here, life, death, death, life are demarcated as directly opposing concepts which lend balance to each other. But the poet goes on to express that this is only how the ideas have been perceived for ages. These words, he says, have led our consciousness for a length of time so indiscriminately long that he describes it only as ages or ages of man. And yet, in this opening statement, the poet suggests we have been led wrongly into the belief that the concepts are opposites, when in fact this is only how they seemed. But it is not the truth. Death and life, he goes on to say, are rather accompaniments to each other, with death not symbolizing the end or absence of life, but simply a part of human existence. For ages it has been feared, when in reality throughout these ages billions of humans have experienced death as a natural process of which we should not be afraid. By putting double punctuations after the first death, the poet creates a kind of stream of consciousness. The poem becomes a thought. It is internal musings. Sri Aurobindo opens his poem with the traditional understanding of life and death as one in which human beings fear death as the end of life. The invocation of our thought and consciousness, along with the idea of firmly, helps to enhance this. Sri Aurobindo is speaking of a belief position that posits death as the end of life, one that is looked on with fear and confusion. It is rooted in the attachment of life and the clinging to it as one in which individuals see themselves as being alone in the world. Sri Aurobindo follows the opening lines, two opposites that have its long hidden pages opened. This helps to evoke the idea that life and death are part of a larger process. It is not one in which we are forlorn, causing us to be afraid of death. Rather, Sri Aurobindo is suggesting that we open our minds to fully embracing a reality in which individuals see themselves as a part of a larger configuration. This construction is one in which liberating truths emerge, shedding the idea that death is to be something in which fear shrouds. Sri Aurobindo says that the two have been regarded as antinomies for ages, thus shaping our thought. But now he has access to new wisdom. As it were, long hidden pages are opened, liberating truths undreamed. Our thoughts and consciousness are deeply formed on this binary, life and death. But now, long hidden pages are opened, freeing truths which are never dreamed before. Our traditional understanding of life and death as binary opposites has to be changed. Life only is, or death is life disguised. Sri Aurobindo asserts that there is no death at all. Everything is only life. If there is death at all, it is merely life disguised. Life itself masquerading as death. This is a profound utterance because it will altogether change our attitude to life. If there is no death at all, then all of us are immortal. We do see people dying. So what is reality? They passed from one kind of life to another. Death is life disguised. That what appears to be death is another kind of life. In Savitri, at the climatic moment in the epic, it is death itself which reveals its true face as the supreme lord of life and delight. But in this brief poem, it is really last line that packs the punch. It contains a radical reversal of the relationship between life and death. Earlier, it was death which was sought to be banished, or rather redefined in terms of life. Now, the life that we consider to be the ultimate reality is itself seen as a sort of death, a short one, until we are surprised by another kind of life. What we might consider the afterlife is much vaster and greater than this short duration on earth that we know as life. If our visions were so to expand, surely we might discover that eternity which nuzzles in the bosom of time. Critical analysis. Our earthly life is very short, 80 years or so, but the life after death is countless years. No man can imagine. It's everlasting. So, comparing to the everlasting life that comes after death, life on earth, or life as we call, is very short. Death is something which transforms human beings into another life. So, why should we fear? Why should we worry about death, which ultimately gives us an eternal life? We should welcome death as it leads us to a good prospect, a better life. It doesn't mean that we should commit suicide. As our earthly life period ends, automatically death will come. Be intelligent enough to understand the concept of death and the life after. Aurobindo's life. As I told you earlier, it is divided into 4 parts. Part 1. In 1879, at the age of 7, he was taken to England to be educated there with his brothers. Even though he passed Indian civil service, didn't enter the service. He became convinced that he did not want to serve the British. He therefore failed to present himself at the horse riding examination for Indian civil service and was disqualified for the service. During this period, he learned French, Greek, Latin, and English. He obtained an appointment with the Maharaja of Baroda and set sail to return to India in January 1893. That marked the end of the phase 1 of Sri Aurobindo's life. Part 2. The Baroda period lasts for 13 years until 1906, a phase of preparation and growth of his later work. He studied Bengali, Sanskrit and several modern Indian languages. He was married to Mrinalini Bose in 1901. During this time, he experienced his first definite spiritual realization. His political activities began in 1902 when he met Lokmanya Tilak. Sri Aurobindo began participating in two activities, politics and yoga. Part 3. His political activities continued most vigorously in Kolkata, where in Bande Mataram, his influential periodical, he attacked British imperialism vehemently. In 1907, he was prosecuted for sedition but acquitted. In 1908, he was arrested and detained on suspicion of revolutionary activities. During this period, he underwent further spiritual experiences, including cosmic consciousness. After a year of detention, he was acquitted following a stormy and celebrated trial. Chittaranjan Das, a lawyer and politician. Afterwards, Aurobindo started two new weekly papers, the Karma Yogin in English and the Dharma in Bengali. However, it appeared that the British government would not tolerate his nationalist program, as then Viceroy and Governor General of India, Lord Minto, wrote about him. I can only repeat that he is the most dangerous man we have to reckon with. Part 4. In 1910, he set sail for Pondicherry in South. He continued living there until his death on December 5th, 1950. In 1914, August 15th, he began the publication of Arya, a periodical in which the original versions of most of his famous works appeared. In 1920, Mira Richard, or Mira Alfasa, afterwards had known as Mother, arrived. She gradually built up the ashram and made extensive and superbly organized Sri Aurobindo Ashram. In November 1926, after some decisive spiritual experiences, he withdrew almost totally into solitude. He guided his disciples through yearly darshans and an extensive correspondence. Thoughts and works of Sri Aurobindo. The central theme of Sri Aurobindo's vision is the evolution of life into a life divine. In his own words, man is a transitional being. He is not final. The step from man to Superman is the next approaching achievement in the earth evolution. It is inevitable because it is at once the intention of the inner spirit and the logic of nature's process. The theme of his poetry changed with the projects that he undertook. It ranged from revolutionary homage to mystical philosophy. Sri Aurobindo wrote in classical style. He believed that a new, deep and intuitive poetry could be a powerful aid to the change of consciousness and the life required to achieve the spiritual destiny of mankind which he envisioned. Unlike philosophy or psychology, poetry could make the reality of the spirit to the imagination and reveal its beauty and delight and captivate the deeper soul of humanity to its acceptance. It was about his prose writing of this period that Times Library Supplement, London, wrote on 8th July 1944 as Sri Aurobindo is the most significant and perhaps the most interesting. He is a new type of thinker, one who combines in his vision the alacrity of the West with the illumination of the East. Sri Aurobindo's famous works: Songs to Myrtilla 1895, Urvashi 1896, Baji Prabhu 1910, Chitrangada 1910, The Secrets of the Veda 1920, Love and Death 1921, The Life Divine 1939, The Synthesis of Yoga 1948, Savitri 1954, Ilion 1957.